go, Brahmanande. Now is the time for the Bhagavad Gita class. The speaker is there, already waiting for everybody to hear him. Okay, the Katha, Bhagavad Gita. Yes? Everybody please face over this side here. Can I have the Bhagavad Gita class? Yes? Okay. આની માટે ઓલું ત્રણ ચાર આ લઈ જા આ લઈ જા આ લઈ જા
Krishna's the best and I get to be an instrument.
Yeah, but who gets the opportunity?
Charlotte's playing. Anita. Charlotte's playing. Hare Krishna. It should be okay. It should be fine because it's loud enough. Hare Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna. So it's a tradition for us to start with Jai Radha Madhav Press before we discuss the Bhagavad Gita. So if you know the bhajan, if you know the prayers, then please do sing it in call and response style. And thank you to the devotees. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha. Jaya Giri Varadhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha. Jaya Giri Varadhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha. Jaya Giri Varadhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you everybody for joining. Please feel free to come forward. There's more space this side. I just don't want to block the exit if that's possible, just to allow more people to come. So we are reading from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, which is entitled The Contents of the Gita Summarized. And the verse we're reading today is verse 31, which is on the screens that you can see also. So I will read out the first line, and maybe in call and response, if you'd like to try and recite the Sanskrit, that'd be nice. And maybe this young gentleman can also try and recite them. But let's see. Swadharmam api chaveksha navikampitum arhasi dharmyadhi yudachyonyat kshatriyasya na vidyate swadharmam api chaveksha navikampitum arhasi dharmyadhi yudachyonyat kshatriyasya na vidyate swadharmam api chaveksha navikampitum arhasi dharmyadhi yudachyonyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. Would anybody like to try and recite? Swadharmam api chaveksha navikampitum arhasi diyudachyonyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. Anybody else? Maybe we can try two more. Swadharmam api chaveksha navikampitum arhasi dharmyadhi yudachyonyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. One more. Anyone? One more. No? Okay. Okay, so we shall recite the synonyms, the word for word. So again, I'll repeat. I'll say it first and then you can repeat. Swadharmam, one's own religious principles. Api, also. Cha, indeed. Evaksha, considering. Na, never. Vikampitum, to hesitate. Arhasi, you deserve. Dharmyat, for religious principles. He, indeed. Yudhat, than fighting. Shreya, better engagement, anyat, any other, kshatriyasya, of the kshatriya, na, does not, vidyate, exist. So who's got the controls? Who's got the control? There should be something here, like a keyboard or something. So just read the translation. So translation, considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. Hopefully we'll get, yes. If you just click and then just scroll. Opposite way. Yeah. So again, if we repeat, considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles. And so, there is no need for hesitation. So purport, which is the commentaries of the Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So just read this, just because it's long, but you can follow. Out of the 4 orders of social administration, the second order for the matter of good administration is called Kshatriya. Kshat means hurt. One who gives protection from harm is called Kshatriya. Trayate means to give protection. The Kshatriyas are trained for killing in the forest. A Kshatriya would go into the forest and challenge a tiger face to face and fight with the tiger with his sword. When the tiger was killed, it would be offered the royal order of cremation. This system has been followed even up to the present day by the Kshatriya kings of Jaipur state. The Kshatriyas are specially trained for challenging and killing because religious violence is sometimes a necessary factor. Therefore, Kshatriyas are never meant for accepting directly the order of sannyas or renunciation. Non-violence in politics may be a diplomacy, but is never a factor or principle. In the religious law books, it is stated, Ahaveshu mithod nyonyam jigam santo mahikshita yudhamana param kshatya svargam yatya paranmukha Yagneshu Pashavo Brahman Hanyate Satatam Dvije Samskrita Kilat Mantrescha Tepi Svargam Vapnuvan. In the battlefield, a king or Kshatriya, while fighting another king envious of him, is eligible for achieving the heavenly planets after death, as the Brahmanas also attain the heavenly planets by sacrificing animals in the sacrificial fire. Therefore, killing on the battlefield on religious principles and killing animals in the sacrificial fire are not at all considered to be acts of violence, because everyone is benefited by the religious principles involved. The animal sacrificed gets a human life immediately without undergoing the gradual evolutionary process from one form to another. And the Kshatriyas killed on the battlefield also attain the heavenly planets, as do the Brahmanas who attain them by offering sacrifice. There are 2 kinds of swadharmas, specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of his particular body in accordance with the religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one's swadharma or specific duty becomes spiritual and is not in the material bodily concept. In the bodily conception of life, there are specific duties for the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas respectively, and such duties are unavoidable. Swadharma is ordained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the 4th chapter. On the bodily plane, Swadharma is called Varnashram Dharma, or man's stepping stone, for spiritual understanding. Human civilization begins from the stage of Varnashram Dharma, or specific duties in terms of the specific modes of nature of the body obtained. discharging one's specific duty in any field of action in accordance with the orders of higher authorities serves to elevate one to a higher status of life. So just recite the Mangalacharan. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamascha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you everybody for joining us today, both in person and online, and hopefully those who are taking darshan will also be able to join us. And it'll be nice. It's nice to discuss the transcendental wisdom that Krishna has given us through Srila Prabhupada. Better? Better? Okay, we'll try that. I don't know why it's dropping, but we'll see. So, how many, if you put your hands up, how many have read the Bhagavad Gita? A few people? How many have at least turned the pages of the Bhagavad Gita? Okay, a few more. That's good. So I'll explain where we're at in the Bhagavad Gita so that we can understand what's going on, because naturally with any story, with any book, there's always a context behind what's taking place. Imagine you just joined in with two of your friends having a conversation. They're halfway between their conversation and then you join in. How much of the conversation are you actually going to grasp and understand? Not much, right? You're going to start thinking, oh, this person's saying this, my friend is saying this, they must be talking about this thing. But then actually you start interrupting, and then what happens? They're like, oh, Anita, you don't know what we're talking about. So it's good to understand where we're at in the Bhagavad Gita, because the Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between two personalities, Krishna and Arjuna. So in chapter 1, the Bhagavad Gita starts off with describing a great war that's taking place, the Mahabharata war, that many will be familiar with and know about. And at some point, whilst the two armies are getting ready to fight, they're just getting ready, they're just ready to take their arms out and start fighting. Arjuna, one of the warriors, one of the pious warriors, he's thinking, hang on, let me just see who's here to fight us. And so he asks his chariot driver, Krishna, who is the man that we worship on the far left of the altar from our perspective, who is God. He asks Krishna to please take the chariot to the middle of the battlefield so that I can see who's on the opposite side of the army. And what does he see? Friends, family, well-wishers, all these people he looked up to. His guru is on the other side. His teachers are on the other side. His grandfather is on the other side. The grandfather who looked after them, nurtured them, cared for them, are on the other side of the battlefield. And so now he's thinking, he's distressed. He's thinking, I'm about to fight my own kinsmen, my own people, the ones who looked after me, the ones who care for me. And in this way, he's going through a mental turmoil. He's going through an emotional state in consciousness. And in that, he starts bringing back many arguments. He presents his arguments to Krishna and says, look, there's all these reasons on why I shouldn't fight the war. I don't want to fight. I just want to give everything up, run to the forest, because at the end of the day, life is about being spiritual, and being spiritual means renouncing everyone, forget family, forget wife, forget kids, just go to Haridwar. So he's thinking the same thing. Let me just give everything up and let me just go, because fighting isn't worth it. And at the end of chapter 1, we see that Arjun is basically just ready to put down his famous Gandiva bow, because he's in lamentation. He's in anxiety. And then in chapter 2, we see that Krishna goes to Arjun and says, what's overcome you? How did somebody who's meant to be an intelligent man become so emotionally wavered? How are you faltering so much because of your emotions? And at that point, Arjun decides that, okay, Krishna is here, God is here, let me take shelter of God. And he recites a very famous verse, Karpanya dosho pahata svabhava prichami tvam dharma sammuda cheta yachreyasyanichitam bruhi tanme shishyaste hamshadi mam tvam prapannam. He says that now I'm ready to submit myself to you. I'm confused, I'm agitated, I don't know what's going on, I don't know what my duty is. Should I fight or should I not fight? And so he goes to Krishna and says, now I'm your devotee, now I'm your shishya, your disciple. Please accept me, please instruct me on how I should act. What should I do? And the first thing Krishna gives, he doesn't tell Arjuna, I want you to follow this 10-step action plan, because this is all you need to do to win the war. He goes to Arjuna and says, think. Let's use intelligence. Let's understand the situation for what the situation actually is. And he explains, the first thing Krishna explains to Arjuna is that you're not this body. You're a spirit soul. And as a spirit soul, you, just like everybody else on the battlefield, is just passing through this phase, passing through this experience, this human experience in this body. So, life and death is just two parts of the bigger picture. And so you shouldn't get so overwhelmed by this situation of life and death. Because it's just like points on a page, pen points on a page in a bigger story, in a bigger line. It's like a chapter in a bigger book. So there's no need for you to be so concerned about it. And so we see that Krishna gives Arjuna a very nice understanding of how Arjuna's thought process up until now has been very much on the bodily platform. But Krishna is encouraging Arjuna, elevate your consciousness. Think of yourself as a spiritual being. Think of everyone around you as a spiritual being. But it's one thing understanding the theory that we're a spirit soul. I mean, I'm sure many in this room have heard this before, many times, from parents, from family, from the pages of the Bhagavad Gita that you've opened up, that we're a spirit soul, we're not a body, we're a spirit soul, just having a human experience. But it's one thing having a theoretical understanding. But how does that theoretical understanding then become a practical lifestyle and realization? And that's what the Bhagavad Gita is really about. It's helping us realize the wisdom that Krishna has given to us. And so, it's not that we hear it today, that you've heard it from Bhaja Govindam Das in Bhagavad Gita class at 6 p.m. on a Sunday, the 24th of October, 2024. It's not October, by the way, it's November. It's not that you just hear it in class that we're a spirit soul, and immediately the next moment we start living like we're a spirit soul. We need to understand what it means. What does it mean to act in the understanding of being a spirit soul? And that's where Krishna starts explaining in today's verse, in verse 31 that we just read, where he starts to go on a passage to explain to Arjuna what it means to act in the identity of being a spirit soul. So I'll recite the translation again. The translation for the verse. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. In the verse today, Krishna talks about, you can see in the third line, there's a word trio, which is really Shreya. When you look at the Sanskrit, it means Shreya. In Sanskrit, there's a very nice concept, or two phrases, Shreya and Preya. Does everybody know these words, Shreya and Preya? No? So Shreya is an indication of that which is which gives long-term benefit. If I say that something is going to give me Shreya, it means it's going to give me long-term benefit. And in the long-term sense, it's also a spiritual benefit. Oftentimes it translates into tolerating or going through some difficulty now in order for some gain in the future. Something that's going to be permanently beneficial, long-term benefit. Think, simple example, health. Looking after your health, going to the gym, exercising. These are short-term, oh man, I said I'm going to go to the gym 1 hour each day. But it's such an effort to do that, right? We have to sacrifice other things. We have to tolerate, we have to put some effort in now in order for us to gain something in the long-term health benefits. Or in a spiritual sense, something spiritual, something more something beyond this body. And Priya is basically something short-term. It's seeing and acting in a way that is just for the immediate gratification, the immediate enjoyment. And oftentimes you can see that this is not necessarily good in the long term. Oftentimes it can be quite damaging for the long term. If you think of any short-term pleasures that we experience, that we want, that we endeavor for, we can see that sometimes they cause long-term health issues. Sometimes they cause damage in relationships. Sometimes they may cause upheavals in not just our life, but lives of others around us, career, and all these other things as well. And so Shreya and Priya are basically two sides of the same coin. If we're endeavoring for something long-term, the likelihood is that you're going to have to sacrifice the pleasures in the short term. If you want to experience the long-term health benefits of exercise and good diet, chances are you're going to have to give up the chocolate bars you have when you go home after a long day at the temple, or the cake, or the fast food restaurant. Because if that's your focus, if the focus is your long-term benefit, then you have to make some sacrifices in the short term. And so here, Krishna is saying that there's no better engagement than fighting on religious principles. There's no better long-term benefit than we can do than performing our duties. And what we see is that when we look at the world around us, we see the majority of the world is engaged in prayer. They're engaged in just finding and engaging in what is immediately satisfactory to them and their senses. The pubs and the clubs after a long day or a long week of work. The, close your ears everyone, but the Netflix and Star Plus and ZTV and the Colors TV shows. Immediate sense, right? Immediate gratification. Okay, long day at work, let me just chill out. What do? Turn the TV on. Classic. I can see people are laughing because they relate. But if we're thinking about our long-term benefit, we'll be thinking of, okay, what should I be doing? What can I be doing to serve my bigger journey in life? I've just heard I'm a spirit soul. What can I be doing? What should I be doing for my long-term benefit? And we see wisdom texts like the Bhagavad Gita and the other books, they encourage us to systematically take the steps to engage more in the Shreya, more in the better, the long-term engagements and benefits than the Priya. The wisdom texts don't expect us to go, today I've heard that I'm a spirit soul, and now tomorrow I'm just going to give everything that I've enjoyed up and just practice spiritual life. The wisdom text, step by step, encourage us and help us in that journey to go from where we are to focusing on our spiritual benefit. And so we've spoken about dharma. We've spoken about long-term being dharma. What is dharma? What's the definition of dharma? Any thoughts, any ideas? Duty. Oftentimes people translate it as duty. Any other words that come to mind? There's one other common one that people usually use. Religion. So you were going to say? Way of life. Okay, yeah, that's nice. But yeah, duty and religion are usually the words that people usually come up with. But it's interesting because when you look at Srila Prabhupada's translation of dharma and when he uses it in context, yeah, it's duty, yeah, it's religion. But it's actually, if I find it, it's actually that which cannot be given up. It's like a core foundational principle. It's an identity. You could say that salt has a dharma, to be salty. You're not going to ever expect salt to be sweet. If you think of salt, it's always going to be salty. If you think of sugar, it's not going to be chili, ever. It's always going to be sweet. So being sweet is sugar's dharma. In the same way, we also have a dharma. But I just mentioned that we're a spirit soul, but we're having a human experience. So what's a way that we can understand our dharma? Dharma, another sense of dharma, when we look at the Vedic tradition and the Vedic scriptures, dharma is that which is given by Krishna. So dharma isn't what we come up with. Dharma isn't what I think of. Dharma is what is given in the scriptures to say this is dharma. And to support that, there's a aphorism or a phrase in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Bhagavad Puran, some may know it as, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat parinitam. It says that dharma, that the real religious principles, are enacted or given to us by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Oftentimes we use the word dharma generally and just freely, but actually real dharma comes from when it's given to us by the scriptures, by Krishna or the saintly personalities. And Krishna also gives us the dharma on how to balance and how to live in the identity of us being a spirit soul, as well as us living as a human. Because even though we're spirit souls, we're living in a material body. We're living in a human body. And that has its own dharma also. And it's described that there's two dharmas, one for the spirit soul, one for the body. The one for the body is called swadharma. Swadharma literally means worldly duties, which are there to maintain the body. And when I say body, I'm not just talking about the physical body. It's also our sense of identity, our sense of existence in this world. So it could be things we're doing for the gross body, but also things we're doing for the mind, the intelligence, the emotions, the family relationships, the society that we're living in, the community we're living in. So that's swadharma, worldly duties. But then there's also sanatan dharma. Sanatan dharma are those duties which pertain to the soul, the eternal duties for the spirit soul. And naturally, I think all of those in this room can understand. It involves things like chanting, it involves things like reading spiritual books, it involves things like hearing katha like you all are doing. Sometimes Sanatan Dharma is referred to as sadhana bhakti. Sadhana. Sa means great, and dhan. People know dhan as wealth. So sadhana is that which gives the greatest wealth, actually. So sadhana bhakti is that which gives the greatest sense of devotion, the greatest sense of belonging to God, to Krishna. And so sometimes Sanatana Dharma is also translated as sadhana bhakti, because it's this idea of what we're doing in the relationship with God. How are we attaining the wealth in our relationship with God? So again, those are things like the chanting, the reading, and things like that. But in this verse, we see Krishna is very, very much focused on the swadharma aspect, on the material duties. And what are those material duties? Well, they're related to serving and looking after the family, the parents, the children. But more generally, it's termed as varnashram dharma. Has anybody heard the term varnashram before? Varnashram dharma? A few of you? Varnashram dharma is made up of two concepts. There's varna and ashram. Varna means, in one sense, it's your personality or your occupational duties. And there's 4 categories given. The Vedic literature is very scientific, it's very orderly. It goes through things like frameworks, it goes through things like blueprints to help us really understand the spiritual science. And Varnashram Dharma is one such model, actually. So Varna is 4 categories, and ashrams are 4 categories as well. Varnas are 4 types. So you've got Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Brahmanas, as many will understand, are those who are intellectual. Traditionally, they'll be spiritually inclined. They'll understand the spiritual conclusions of the scriptures. In modern days, you could translate them as the thinkers of society. Those who are materially very well conscious and aware, but also spiritually. Then you've got Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas traditionally, as you can see here, and as Sri Prabhupada talks about, or as we're talking about with Arjun, then there'll be warriors. There'll be kings or princes and part of the kingdom's administration group that go out and fight wars. Then you've got the Vaishyas, the ones who would be farming, the ones who would be businessmen in one sense. Or I like to see them as profiters, the ones who will look around and see, okay, where do I find the most profit? You know, the dollar signs going in their eyes, or the pound signs in the UK. And then you've got the Shudras. The Shudras are those whose lives are dedicated to supporting the other 3 Varnas. The Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. Their life is devoted to serving in the mood of as a worker, basically. Somebody who's working for other people, for the Vaishyas, for the businessmen, for the Kshatriyas, the kingdom, or the parliament, etc., the government authorities, or the Brahmanas, the intellectuals. And here we see that Arjun is a Kshatriya. And as a Kshatriya, it was his duty to fight. But we see that Arjun didn't want to fight. He wanted to run away. Because his thought process was that, actually, yes, I'm meant to fight. But if I fight, I'm killing all these kinsmen. And that doesn't seem very spiritual to me. What seems more spiritual is if I just run away, if I renounce everything and run away. And sometimes as people who practice a spiritual path, sometimes we think like that. If we get serious, we start to think, maybe it's better I just run away from my family. Maybe it's better, if only I didn't have my husband to hold me back, then I could just practice my spiritual path very sincerely and seriously. It's my husband that's holding me back. But here we see that Krishna didn't encourage Arjuna to run away. Krishna was encouraging Arjuna, stay in your position and fight. And I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to have to cut this whole thing very short. But we see Krishna encourage Arjuna to fight, not just for fighting purposes, not just for the sake of fighting, but for the sake of religious principles. He said that it's your duty to fight. And it's not that Krishna was saying that you just fight, you just do your duty because I've told you this is your duty and you fight. We see later on, Krishna says in the 8th chapter, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhyacha mayarpito mano buddhir mami veshyasya samshaya. He says, translation, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you attain me without doubt. Krishna is encouraging Arjuna that you should do your duty, you should fight, but do so in a way that you're always thinking of me. Do so in a way that your mind, your intelligence, your thoughts, your consciousness is absorbed in me. When we're going out in the world, when we're working, when we're cooking in the kitchen, when we're eating on the table, when we're dressing our kids, preparing them for school, how much of our thoughts are thinking of God, are thinking of Krishna and absorbed in Krishna? Very little. We're doing our duty, but it doesn't become spiritual until we're using those duties to then remember Krishna. Doing our duty is progress, because we could be those who are just engaging in prayas, just doing whatever whimsical activity we want to do. But the fact we're doing our duties, the fact that we're considering the family situation, the fact that we're considering the parents, the children, the fact that we're considering the career in order to support the family, the money in the family, etc. That's duty. But what makes the duty spiritual and progressive in our spiritual journey is when we use those duties and dovetail them in spiritual ways. When you look at the devotees, when you come to the temple, when you see people, you will see like Swayam Jyoti Prabhu at the back, who's just come from the altars to serve the deities. He's got a specific type of lifestyle. He's molded his life to serve Krishna. He'll be chanting. You'll see people around the temple. You'll see them holding weird bead bags and chanting. Because they recognize that in order to focus the mind on Krishna, you need to have some dedicated time to focus on Krishna. 1 hour, 2 hours. I was doing a breakdown of the time in the day. Many of us may sleep for 8 hours a day. We'd go to work for 8 hours. That leaves 8 hours for the rest of our day. To eat, to bathe, to cook, to watch TV, to chat to our friends on the phone. But imagine if out of those 8 hours, we saved half an hour or 1 hour to dedicate to our spiritual progress in life. Chant 1 round of the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Or not just open the Bhagavad Gita, but read 2-3 pages a day. If you read 2 pages of the Bhagavad Gita or 2 verses of the Bhagavad Gita a day, you would finish the Bhagavad Gita in 1 year. Very easily. Or coming to the temple like you all have been doing and hearing spiritual discussions. When we absorb ourselves for at least half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours a day, whatever we can in these activities, then we can translate that into the activities that we do on a daily basis. How can we translate our duties when we're at work? How can we translate our duties when we're at home, cooking, cleaning, washing the car, whatever it is we're doing at home, into something spiritual? Is by inviting Krishna into those activities. We all eat food. Many of us, or at least as families, we may be cooking food at home. But whilst we're cooking, then maybe we could have some spiritual sound vibrations going in the background. Some people like kirtan, some people like spiritual discourses. Some people just like chanting, so maybe they'll chant in the mind whilst they're cooking. And what that does, it invites spiritual vibrations into the cooking itself. I'm sure many of you have seen or heard of the green peas advert, I think it was, from many years ago, Green Giants. You are what you eat. It's not just what you eat, but the consciousness of the food also. The consciousness of the cook also goes into the food we eat. And so imagine if the cook has a very spiritual consciousness whilst they're cooking. That would be the one that would go into the bodies of the people. And further, we could take that food that we're eating, or just cooked, and offer it to Krishna instead. We're all going to eat anyway. Where's the harm in just taking that food and going, okay, set aside a plate, give it to Krishna? We all know the concept of prasadam. Whatever we cook, we can make it prasadam and eat prasadam at home. Okay, that's cooking, that's easy at home. Just 2 minutes. But then what about the workplace? At the workplace, we can see that, okay, we're developing skills, we're earning money. But not only that, we're surrounded by people who are struggling in life themselves just as we are. But if we're absorbing, if you're spending half an hour a day, an hour a day in the spiritual wisdom, and we find that there's something valuable there, there's something that we've learned that is helping us in our situation, maybe we could share that with the colleagues. In the tea breaks, instead of gossiping about the person who didn't turn up for work that day until like 3 hours after the meeting, we could gossip about the spiritual wisdom and make that beneficial for us and for them. It's beneficial for us because we're absorbing ourselves in what we've heard and discussed, and that helps make the spiritual wisdom go deeper in our heart, but also help them because then they've got something that might help them in their situation. So like this, we can use our time, we can use our intelligence to find ways to invite Krishna into the duties we're performing, so that those duties don't just become material duties, but they become spiritually enriching and enlivening for us as well. And the best form is really inviting Krishna in the form of sound vibrations, whether it's the kirtan, whether it's the chanting, whether it's the spiritual discussions, or whatever it is, whatever we feel inclined to. But somehow let's invite Krishna into the spiritual duties. Because as Arjun is being told, you should do your duty, because that's the highest thing you can do. It's not everybody's cup of tea to renounce the world, to renounce family, and just go and take sannyas. It's not everybody's cup of tea to do that. But in order to be spiritual, we can take our duties and take this idea of spiritual progress, integrate the two together, and then we can make our duties spiritually nourishing as well. So then there, I know there was one question. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Yes. Your name?
My name is Garima. I think the question answered it. My question was, what if you are doing something very monotonous, like financial gains or something which does not involve people? So how do you dedicate it as your service to Krishna?
Yes. So how can we dedicate the time or the work that we're doing, which is monotonous, I cannot say the word, but anyway, it's, yeah, which doesn't involve people. But yeah, I think you understood the idea. It's how the benefit for us can be that we can, if it's monotonous and we don't have to think about it, then how can we engage our mind in Krishna? Well, we can hear a spiritual discourse whilst we're doing that activity. Sometimes, I mean, for those who are very well experienced in cleaning, in cooking, or in Excel spreadsheets at work, it's like you don't even think. You might be having a conversation with your neighbor, you might be on the phone or something, whilst you're doing those activities because you don't have to think. But instead, what if we say, instead of the phone calls, instead of speaking to my neighbor, instead of thinking about other things, my to-do list, my shopping list, what if we instead just engage the ears and the mind in hearing a spiritual discourse at the same time? Because that can be very beneficial. We're not using our brain in the activity. Why not use the brain to absorb some spiritual nourishment? So I don't know if that helps. Yeah. Any other questions, thoughts? Just conscious of time, I don't want to break. Yes. Your name?
So you were mentioning that when we are looking after our family, children, and we are fulfilling our duty, it doesn't really counts as
That's a really nice question. So, the fact that we're doing service to family, to friends, to children, if we recognize that Krishna is within them, then yes, it counts as service to Krishna. But let's be real with ourselves. When we're dealing with our spouse, the children, are we consciously remembering that this person, this personality, is a part of Krishna? And it's my service, it's my duty to serve them because they're a part of Krishna? Or do we tend to do it because actually I've got an affectionate bond with this person and I'm tied in wedlock or whatever it is, as my parents, as my children, and therefore I'm going about my day doing what I think is my duty? And that's the difference. Are we doing it because we're just mindful it's my duty? Or are we doing it because we're mindful actually this person is a part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore it's my service to serve Krishna through them as an instrument of love? So it's a nice question.
Should it be both if you're in a relationship or marriage?
Yeah, it's both, but it's the consciousness that I'm really referring to. There's a part of the consciousness which is just mundane relationship, but the consciousness, that relationship itself becomes spiritual when you're seeing each other as personalities who you're serving because they're parts of Krishna, and also because you're seeing that your service towards them is your service to Krishna. Because Grihastha Ashram, something that I had in my notes but I wasn't, obviously time purposes, Grihastha Ashram, family life, is an authentic means to get closer to Krishna. But it's an authentic means to get closer to Krishna when we see family life and when we make family life conducive to our remembrance of Krishna. Otherwise it just becomes a mundane duty. And in the worst case, a mundane form of sense gratification. I'm with you because I get enjoyment from you. You're with me because you get enjoyment from me. Higher than that, we're with each other because we're committed, we've got duty. But even higher than that is we're with each other because we've got duty towards each other, but also because I can see our relationship will help us grow towards Krishna together. And we see it in that mood. So, I hope that helps. And I'm conscious of time, so I'll end there. We can catch up separately. That's okay? Thank you. I'll end there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada ki Jai.
जय श्री राधा गोकुलानंद की श्री श्री सीताराम लक्ष्मण हनुमान की श्री श्री गौर निताय की. So as the Aarti ceremony is being performed, we'll be singing this song that's on the screen, one line at a time, and after the lead singer if you can repeat, and in this way join in with the singing and dancing. If there are mats around you, please put them underneath the bell so that no one trips over. And if you can all come forward, as others will be joining us for the Aarti very soon.
Shri Radha Gokulananda ki Kiva Jayo Jaya Gorachande Arati Ko Shobha Kiva Jaya Jaya Gorachande Arati Ko Shobha Kiva Jayo Jaya Gorachande Arati Ko Shobha Manor